All right, here's a story. This story I heard from a good friend of mine years ago, maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago. A friend of mine called Rabbi Chaim Dayan. And he told the story on Shavuot. It was the holiday of Shavuot. We sit up all night, and he told the story. The story goes like this. And he was always religious. He was always a religious Jew, and he was in the army. He was in the army, and they called him up that he had to come early in the morning to report at his base. The base is, I forget where it is, but it's somewhere like in Beersheba or someplace like that, in the southern part of Israel. Which that means, if you take the buses, at that time there was no train. You take the buses, like if you're really, really lucky, you can make it in, let's say, an hour. If you catch the buses at exactly the right time. So as a result, people didn't usually take the buses. They would, or until they waited for the bus, or they would, they would wait for they would take a hitchhike. They would hitchhike. At that time, it was permissible. I don't think that it's permissible for soldiers to hitchhike anymore. I think it's forbidden because there was too many of our, peace partners, the Arabs. It used to be that there was no problem, but as soon as they started making peace with the Arabs, so they started, killing Jews. You couldn't trust anybody, so they stopped. But anyway, that used to be they used to take hitch a ride. You would hitch a ride. So he stands on the corner, and it was very lucky. He went out and he got a ride immediately. He got a ride to this big sort of central place. He still had another, maybe an hour's drive in front of him, but at least it took him to a main road. It was like a 10-minute drive to the main road, and he was standing there waiting on this main road for someone to stop and to pick him up. And so he was hitchhiking there, and all of a sudden he sees a big truck, with like two containers, two big containers in the back of them, and it's filled. Both containers are filled with oranges. And the truck stops, and the driver says, "Get in, soldier." So he had been waiting a while, but it was a ride, as it was. He might get there late, but he had a good chance that he could make it to the base on time. So he was just about to put his foot on the step to go in, and another soldier from the Air Force ran and jumped inside. Now, the soldiers in the Air Force, it's not a nice thing to say, but I'll say it anyway. Usually they're Ashkenazic Jews, and usually they feel themselves superior. I mean, to be especially if you're a pilot, you have to have a higher IQ or whatever. Anyway, they consider themselves to be superior, and the whole thing belongs to them. So he jumps in and gets up, cuts this Rabbi Dayan off, and he jumps into the seat next to the driver. So the driver looks down at my friend, and he goes like this, "What should I do?" And he says, "Go, let's go. I don't want to make a big thing out of it, pull him out and make a big argument. Go, let's go." Oh, now it's almost sure that he's going to be late. Well, what can you do, right? So this guy drives off, and he's sitting and waiting. All of a sudden, he hears a siren. It's louder and louder, and it stops right in front of him, with a screech. And the driver says, get in the back. Get in the back." So there was a seat right next to the driver. Said, "Why?" He said, "Get in the back. Talk to the patient. I'm alone. Talk to the patient." So what happened? There was a soldier that he got, what is it called? Shell shock or PTSD, whatever it's called, from something. Anyway, he was in shock. I'm not really so, familiar with the whole thing, but it seems that it can be life-threatening. That people can go into, get shock. I guess it can get, really serious, and a person can just get, catatonic and just lose it all. However it is, so he said, "Listen, I'm not a medic. I don't know, what am I supposed to do?" He said, "Just talk to him. Do anything. Just talk to him." So the guy's laying there and he's like shaking and shuddering, and his eyes are like bolt open, and he's shaking. And so he starts to talk to him. What's he going to say? He doesn't know what to say. So he sees the guy is not a religious Jew and everything. But he is religious. And he hasn't got very much to say except for religious things. He's not in the newspapers. And anyway, he's to say something positive, at least then. You're not going to find that too much of that in the newspapers. So he starts telling him speeches of the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And this guy's just laying there, just, and he's saying words of the Rebbe. There's a speech about the Rebbe about Shavuot and giving the Torah and why the Jews went to sleep, and he's talking, and he's telling them about the importance of putting on tefillin and how the Lubavitcher Rebbe says every Jew should put on tefillin, every Jew is holy, and everything this. And meanwhile, the driver of the ambulance, puts on the thing, and he's speeding down, driving on the sides of the road. Everybody's to stop. And they come to this big, and he hears the driver yell out, "Oh no, I don't believe it! It's a big traffic jam." But he doesn't care, so he does makes the thing, starts honking, and he goes on the side of the road, on the what's called what they call it in English, I don't even remember. Anyway, on the roadside, with the side of the road, and he's speeding by, and Rabbi Dayan looks to see out the window, what is the cause of this terrible traffic jam that they're in, terrible traffic jam. And he sees that there was a big orange truck, a truck full of oranges turned over. And that's what's causing this whole blockage. It was the truck that he was supposed to get on. And no one was hurt. He saw that the driver and this pilot were standing on the side of the road. And of course, the whole road was blocked off. So there's no cars that are going to come. So nobody can come and pick him up. So this guy was stuck on the road. Meanwhile, he is in this ambulance, and the ambulance is completely, ignoring, is impervious to all of this blockage and everything. And he's just speeding around, and he's traveling like 100 miles an hour, speeding down. So meanwhile he's talking to this guy, this shell shocked soldier. And the driver asks, "Where do you have to get off?" So he said, "At this base." He said, "Well, the base is right next to the hospital." He says, "Here, it's right before the hospital." So he let him off at the base, and his group, his platoon that he was supposed to be on, they were just closing the doors to the bus he was supposed to be on. And his commander said, "Dayan, where have you been?" And he starts yelling and screaming, "Get on the bus!" And he got on the bus in time, made it in time. What happened to the pilot? Who knows? He's probably still waiting back there. Maybe to this day, the story must have happened 30 years ago. Maybe to this day he's waiting. But that's not the end of the story. So the driver said, "Thank you very much. You saved this guy's life, and thank you for talking to him, and this." And that's it. Took him to the hospital. This Chaim Dayan, my friend. So he says about 4 or 5 years later, he's walking in Tel Aviv, and someone comes up to him and says, "Hey, how are you?" Said, "Me, I'm okay. Do you remember me?" Said, "No, I don't know. Maybe I know a lot of people." Said, "You were the one, weren't you? You were the one on the ambulance, weren't you the one that talked to me?" Said, "Oh yeah. I didn't know that was you. Yeah." He had a little beard, and he had a kippah on his head. And he said, "Listen, thank you for saving me. You really talked to me." And I said, "I didn't understand what you talked about, but when you talked about the tefillin, that really made an impression on me. And I decided afterwards, I got better, that I'll start putting on tefillin, and I'll start." So it ended up that because this fellow cut him off and took his place on the truck that he thought was the worst thing in the world, it came out that it was better than he could have possibly imagined, right? If he would have gotten on that truck, first of all, it would have been a tragedy because he would have been stuck there with the oranges. But even if it wasn't, so it was a doubt if he would have gotten there on time or not. But here, not only did he get to the place on time, but he saved this person's life, and not only his physical life, but also his spiritual life, right? He woke up a Jew as Judaism. So sometimes the things that we think are really the worst, as God has different plans. And first of all, what we want is not always what we need. And it could be also not what other people need. So we see that God rules the world and that everything that happens for the best. Have a good day with Mashiach now. Thank you very much. We'll see if there'll be a class in the afternoon. It's not at 3 o'clock, so don't try to look for me at 3 o'clock anymore. I'll see maybe in the course of the day, I'll put up a sikha of the Rebbe. Shalom, uvracha, everybody. God bless you all. Have a good day, and we'll meet tomorrow at 8:15.